It was a dark and stormy night, and the old house creaked and groaned under the weight of the wind. Inside, a young woman named Sarah sat alone by the fireplace, her heart pounding with fear. She had heard the stories about the house, about the strange noises, and the feeling of being watched. But she had never believed them, until tonight. Sarah had moved into the old house a few weeks ago, after her parents had died in a car accident. She had been looking for a fresh start, a place where she could forget about her grief. But the old house was not the peaceful retreat she had hoped for. As the storm raged outside, Sarah heard a noise from upstairs. It sounded like footsteps, soft and hesitant, as if someone was trying to be quiet. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat, and she froze in terror. The footsteps came closer, and Sarah could hear them clearly now. They were coming down the stairs, slowly and deliberately. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, and she could feel her body trembling. The footsteps stopped outside the room where Sarah was hiding. She could hear the doorknob turning slowly, and then the door creaked open. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the inevitable. But nothing happened. The door remained open, and the footsteps didn't come any closer. Sarah cautiously opened her eyes and peered out into the hallway. The hallway was empty, and the footsteps were gone. Sarah let out a sigh of relief, but she was still shaken. She couldn't explain what she had heard, but she knew that she wasn't alone in the house. Sarah spent the rest of the night huddled by the fireplace, too afraid to sleep. She kept hearing noises, both inside and outside the house. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, and she knew that she would never be safe in the old house. The next morning, Sarah packed her bags and left the house for good. She never went back, and she never spoke of what she had experienced. But she knew that she would never forget the night she heard the footsteps in the old house. The old house stood empty for many years, a silent testament to the horror that had taken place within its walls. The locals whispered about the house, saying that it was haunted by the ghosts of those who had died there. One day, a group of teenagers decided to explore the old house. They had heard the stories about the house, but they didn't believe them. They thought that it would be fun to scare themselves. The teenagers entered the house through a broken window. The house was dark and dusty, and the air was thick with the smell of decay. The teenagers laughed and joked as they made their way through the house, but they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. As they explored the house, the teenagers heard strange noises. They heard whispers and footsteps, and they felt a cold chill run down their spines. They tried to ignore the noises, but they couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. The teenagers eventually reached the attic. The attic was dark and dusty, and the air was even thicker with the smell of decay. The teenagers could barely see in the darkness, but they stumbled around, looking for something to scare them. As they were exploring the attic, the teenagers heard a loud noise from behind them. They turned around to see a dark figure standing in the doorway. The figure was tall and thin, and its face was hidden in the shadows. The teenagers screamed and ran for the door, but the figure was too quick for them. The figure grabbed one of the teenagers and dragged them back into the darkness. The other teenagers ran out of the attic and out of the house, screaming for help. The police were called, and they searched the old house, but they found no sign of the missing teenager or the dark figure. The missing teenager was never seen again, and the old house was eventually sealed up and condemned. The old house still stands empty today, a silent reminder of the horror that took place within its walls. The locals still whisper about the house, saying that it is haunted by the ghost of the missing teenager and the dark figure. And on dark and stormy nights, some say that they can still hear the footsteps echoing through the halls of the old house. Years after the new family flood, the old house fell into further disrepair. Nature reclaimed its space, vines climbed up the walls, and trees overgrew the yard. The once imposing structure became increasingly decrepit, a haunting reminder of the tragedy that had taken place within its walls. One day, a young woman named Emily found herself drawn to the old house. She had always been fascinated by the macabre, and the stories of the house's haunting intrigued her. She decided to investigate the old house, hoping to uncover the truth behind its dark reputation. Emily approached the house with caution, its dilapidated state sending a shiver down her spine. She peered through the broken windows, catching glimpses of dusty rooms and cobweb-covered furniture. The sight filled her with a mix of trepidation and excitement. Emily cautiously entered the house, her footsteps echoing through the cavernous hallways. The air was heavy with the smell of decay, and the shadows seemed to dance around her. She felt a chill run down her spine, as if someone was watching her every move. As Emily ventured deeper into the house, she began to experience strange phenomena. She heard whispers in the wind, felt cold gusts of air passing through her, and saw fleeting figures in the darkness. The house seemed to come alive around her, imbued with a malevolent energy that sent shivers down her spine. Emily's curiosity and fear began to intertwine, fueling her determination to uncover the truth behind the house's haunting. She delved deeper into its history, reading old newspapers and interviewing the few remaining locals who still remembered the house's tragic past. She learned about the missing teenager, the dark figure that had been seen lurking in the attic, and the mysterious disappearance of the new family. The stories only deepened her resolve to unravel the mystery, to understand the forces that haunted the old house. Emily spent days and nights exploring the house, meticulously documenting her findings. She took photographs, recorded audio, and even attempted to communicate with the spirits that seemed to reside within the walls. As she delved deeper into the house's mysteries, Emily began to feel a strange connection to the spirits that haunted it. She felt their pain, their despair, and their yearning for peace. She realized that the house was not just a place of horror, but also a place of sorrow, a place where lost souls were trapped in an eternal cycle of torment. Emily was determined to help the spirits find peace, to break the curse that bound them to the old house. She spent her days performing rituals and reading ancient texts, hoping to find a way to release their tormented souls. One night, as Emily was performing a ritual in the attic, she felt a surge of energy coursing through her body. The spirits seemed to respond to her efforts, their presence growing stronger and more tangible. Suddenly, the room erupted in a blinding flash of light. The spirits materialized before Emily's eyes, their tormented faces etched with pain and sorrow. They pleaded with her to help them, to free them from their eternal suffering. Emily closed her eyes and focused her energy, channeling her power into a powerful spell. She felt the spirits' pain and despair dissipate, replaced by a sense of peace and serenity. The air grew lighter, and the oppressive atmosphere of the house began to lift. When Emily opened her eyes, the spirits were gone. The house was silent, the air still. She felt a wave of relief wash over her, knowing that she had helped the spirits find peace. Emily left the old house that night, her heart filled with a sense of accomplishment and peace. She had faced her fears and helped those in need, proving that even in the darkest of places, there is always hope for redemption. The old house remains a silent monument to the tragedy that once unfolded within its walls. But the darkness has lifted, and the spirits finally found peace. The house stands as a reminder that even in the face of evil, there is always the potential for good to prevail.